But on that note, we are now progressing to the headline game. Tonight, we are going to be comparing the top headlines with Daily Wire and MSNBC. So, for those of you who don't know how this works, or if it's your first time, I simply open up that news app and go through the top headline. I skim through the article in real time just to kind of get a feel for it, but it's usually pretty funny comparing, unless some major news story is breaking. It's funny to see the priorities. So, let me find Daily Wire. Okay, the top news story on Daily Wire. Terror groups evacuate their positions after Biden administration tips them off to their plans. This is by Ryan Saavedra. Hopefully I pronounced your name correctly, sir. The Iranian-backed terrorists responsible for murdering 3 U.S. soldiers and injuring dozens more in an attack over the weekend have started to evacuate their bases after President Joe Biden's administration leaked to the media this week that they are gearing up to respond by carrying out a sustained bombing campaign. The news comes after NBC News reported on Wednesday that the U.S. retaliatory strikes would be a, quote, campaign that lasts, quote, weeks, according to U.S. officials. The officials went as far as to say that the U.S. would target, quote, Iranian targets outside Iran, and the campaign will involve both strikes and cyber operations, the report added. CBS News reported late on Wednesday that the terror groups that make up Islamic Resistance in Iraq, an Iranian-backed terrorist group, have, quote, evacuated their bases in Iraq and Syria, fearing U.S. retaliatory strikes after Sunday's attack. A U.S. official further telegraphed America's forthcoming punches by telling ABC News that, quote, they are going to be very deliberate targets, deliberate strikes on facilities that enabled these attacks. Let's see, and then somebody criticizes the Biden administration more, and that is pretty much it. So that is the article on Daily Wire Plus. Like I said, the headline reads, terror groups evacuate their positions after Biden admin tips them off to their plans. And you can see that on dailywire.com or the Daily Wire app. And which should come as no surprise, because when you tell someone you're going to hit them, if they stay there, they are stupid. And now we will load MSNBC and see what their top headline is. Top story on MSNBC, why Texas Governor Abbott's latest statement sounds like a prelude to secession. And this is an opinion piece entitled, I prosecuted Watergate and never feared for our democracy, but Greg Abbott has me worried. Abbott either doesn't understand the Constitution or doesn't want to. Both options are worrying. This is by Jill Wine Banks. I'm not an alarmist by nature. From my time as a prosecutor investigating the Watergate scandal, I have never doubted that justice would prevail or that democracy would survive. I never doubted that our union would last. Until now. Texas Governor Greg Abbott's actions at the southern border and his reaction to the Supreme Court's decision in favor of the federal government make me fear for the continued existence of the United States of America. So does his signing of an expansive new law that gives the state's law enforcement powers over immigration that rightly belong to the federal government, not to Texas or any other state. In fact, should the Supreme Court rule against the Biden administration's challenge to the law, that would have consequences for every federal policy, not just immigration policy. Which, to be fair, remember how before I stated I was skeptical about that headline? Things are getting real, Sosa. Yeah, I'm worried, but I'll be honest, I can't see the Supreme Court ruling in favor of Texas on this one. I can't. Because, as she rightly pointed out, that could set some really bad precedent. But anyway, on its own, Abbott's statement is enough to make me fear for our future as a federal republic. Well, I mean, I'll be fair. This is an opinion piece, so I can give my opinion. I think she's being a little alarmist. Texas always kind of, at least every once in a while, which you don't have to answer this, Sosa, but I know a lot of people that live in Texas, but I always get them confused. It has long been accepted that the federal government controls immigration, national security, international relations, and our borders. Despite the clarity of federal and state roles, which, to be fair, Texas is essentially saying that Biden is not living up to his constitutional responsibilities for the border. That is their argument. In July of last year, Abbott placed a 1,000-foot-long string of buoys separated by serrated saw blades and supporting a submerged mesh net in the middle of the Rio Grande near Eagle Pass, Texas. Not only is this unconstitutional move sparked protests from the Mexican government and migrant advocates, but also at least 2 migrants were found dead in the buoy barriers. I had not heard of that, but they said it was in, or I might have heard about it in passing. In addition, among other instances, a pregnant migrant was rescued but miscarried while stuck in the wire. That makes it inhumane as well as unconstitutional, which, like I said, I think the problem with a lot of Republicans is they make it very easy for themselves to forget that these are people who are in fact breaking the law. Not disputing that, but they are people. Yet, while the courts forced Abbott to remove that dangerous obstacle to migrants and transportation from the Rio Grande, the Texas National Guard continued to install razor wire at the edge of the state's land border. When federal agents cut the wire last fall, Texas sued the U.S. for damage to state property. Last week, the Supreme Court ruled against Abbott and affirmed the Department of Homeland Security's right to remove the wire and to have access to the border to carry out the department's duties. 2 days later, Abbott issued a statement threatening to stonewall, much as then President Richard Nixon did when he was subpoenaed for the White House tape recordings that he didn't want my team of Watergate prosecutors to have. And to make matters worse, Representative Chip Roy, Republican from Texas, advised Abbott to ignore the justices and, quote, tell the court to go to hell. That is not wise. Other Republican lawmakers joined in with similar sentiments. Dozens of governors from red states, many with no international borders with Mexico, signed a statement supporting Abbott. A compact between any of those states and Texas without congressional approval would directly violate Article 1 of the Constitution, which is accurate. It would. But even without Roy or the support of a single other Republican governor, Abbott's statement on its own is enough to make me fear for our future as a federal republic. It includes misstatements of law and numerous factual errors, which, if they are in fact false, they will get sorted out in court. The opening sentence alone, quote, the federal government has broken the compact between the United States and the states, would not be out of place among the declarations of succession issued nearly 165 years ago. Abbott defends his actions by citing Article 4, Section 4, which promises the federal government, quote, shall protect each state against invasion, and Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3, which acknowledges the state's sovereign interest in protecting their borders. He goes on to claim that, quote, failure of the Biden administration, like I said, to fulfill duties imposed by Article 4, Section 4, and has triggered Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3, which reserves this to the state the right of self-defense. Yeah, this is going to end up getting... what is the word I'm looking for? This is going to end up being settled via the Supreme Court. But, like I said, it basically goes on to make more arguments. Like I said, I think there needs to be a compromise here because I think that even those crossing illegally, I believe, need to be protected from harm just because they're human beings. But at the same time, the Biden administration, you can't dispute it. I mean, I've seen the numbers. I don't remember them off the top of my head, but they're like the number of illegal crossings on a daily basis has increased dramatically. So basically, both sides are wrong.